Okay. I'm hoping this is working. Okay. I'm gonna start. So for anyone that maybe joined me on the previous live, yay, it's working. So basically, my husband is over here playing on his PS5, and I was using his laptop. He then decided that he was going to join his Bluetooth, and literally, because he did that, it completely just shut down my YouTube live. I don't know what was happening on his laptop. So he's just here playing on the side, and I'm like, I've got a life to do. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Do you know what? It's just made me just realize that I'm just going to use my own computer from now on. And the only reason why I decided not to is because the mic doesn't work on mine, so I tend to use his. But honestly, I'm tired. This is not happening again. Okay, I'm going back to my roots. This has always been how it's been, and it's been fine. So, yeah. Anyway. So let's maybe just do a quick recap on what I was essentially talking about. But sometimes actually it's good to have like a little bit of repeatedness just to make sure that it's getting into your head. So essentially what I was talking about is just mainly the difference between saving money versus investing money. And I will always say that it's so important to save for a specific purpose. So really, like, when I'm asking like what you're actually saving for, just being very clear on what you want to save for. So if, for example, you've got savings, ask yourself, am I saving up for an emergency fund? Am I saving up for a holiday? Or am I saving up for a new car? Am I saving up for, Christmas presents or birthday presents, or even like your house deposit? You may even be saving up to now start overpaying on your debt. Whatever it is, it's just very important to have a specific purpose, because I think many of us just tend to have savings for the sake of saving. And I'm like, we need to kind of stop. Like, we need to think about more clearly what the savings is for, because then you'll be much more motivated and you're more likely to be consistent with those savings. And then what I wanted to talk about is just more the investing part. Like, when would you want to start thinking about investing? And when it comes to investing, ideally, you'll then want to start thinking about things that are maybe a bit more long term. So that's what I tend to do, is when I'm thinking about investing my money, and I simply mean like putting my money to work for me so that I don't have to do the work essentially, and you're expecting some type of return back. That is a way to now start growing your money over time. And that's probably going to be a bit more long term. So again, I should say that I'm not like telling you exactly what to invest in. I'm not a financial advisor. But what I will say is that when you are thinking about investing your money, you should be asking yourself, am I doing this for the long term? So if, for example, you're using the same principles as saving, where you're like, actually, what am I investing for? You then want to ask yourself, well, what am I going to be investing for? Like, what am I going to be using this money for? And for many of us, we're going to be thinking about things like financial independence or even retirement. So like when you reach 65, for example, are you going to have money paying for your expenses so that when you stop working, you can still stop working, or you don't have to depend on the government? Because as I say, we may not have a state pension by the time many of us turn 65. I don't know the future. So we need to then think about, okay, well, if that's the case, and I want to take control of like my own retirement, how much am I going to need, and how do I now start investing to make sure that happens? That is when you want to start thinking about, okay, what is my investment for? The same with like financial independence. Let's say that you don't want to work for the next 40 plus years, but you feel like you don't have a choice because you have to pay your bills. Well, you may think about things like financial independence. And what that essentially means is that if you have investments paying for your expenses, so paying for your lifestyle, it means that you technically don't have to work if you don't want to. Like, you have the option to work and you have the option not to work. Like, it's all up to you. So that's why when I'm talking about like, okay, when you're thinking about like am I going to be investing my money? You want to start thinking about, okay, what is this going to be for? And specifically in this case, you'll be thinking probably more long term. So that's really the main difference, is probably the time. In terms of saving, I would say it's a bit more short term. So maybe like less than 5 years, like less than 3 to 5 years, I would say. But then investing, that will be very much long term. So it may be like, for me personally, I think like, I feel as if that's like over 5 years, probably 10 years, 15 years. We're thinking decades, essentially. But those are like the two key differences. But the principle of knowing what you're saving for and investing for is the same. Like the principle should be the same. You should be clear on why you're doing both, why you're saving and why you're why you're investing. So if you do have any specific questions on like either investing or saving, or like the process of doing both, do let me know in the chat, and I can actually see the chat as well. Okay, so I've got a question. Ezigo asks, what investment vehicles would you recommend for financial independence? So very, very good question. So again, I would say like this also depends on your personal goals. So again, like what you want to do. So if, for example, you're saying to yourself, I want to become financially independent in the next 5 years, compared to someone that wants to become financially independent in the next 20 years, you may have different investment vehicles. But I can share like the most popular investment vehicles. So the first one, stocks and shares. So if you ever hear like people investing in the stock market, through the stock market, basically these are companies where you can actually buy a piece of ownership from them. Like if you decided to buy a share of like an Apple stock, like if you decided to invest in Apple, you can become essentially one of their owners. You will probably you'll probably have a small ownership of the company, because like so many people invest in that company, but essentially you become part of that ownership. Like you become the shareholder. So that is the way that you can actually start investing, like investing through companies. And that's essentially what I do. It's what I teach my clients to do. So we will invest in companies, and you can invest in like individual companies like Apple, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, or you can invest in a group of companies, and these are called funds, essentially. So whenever you're hearing things like ETFs or index funds, these are basically a group of companies where you and other like people will come in, and you'll own a small piece of like a basket of companies. Like you'll own a small piece of each company in that fund, so in that basket. And so that's also a way that you can invest, like if you don't want to invest in like purely individual companies. So that is one way that you can invest, and that's like a big popular way that people will invest. Another way is obviously through like real estate, so property. So if, for example, you wanted to buy a property to rent out, that's how some people tend to invest. That's also something that I'm really interested in. So I definitely want to do that in the future. But that's how people can invest. And let's say that you have like, I don't know, like 5 properties, and they're renting out for like, I don't know, like, no, let's say 4 properties, and they're renting out for $250 each. So 4 properties, 250, that's £1,000 or dollars. That could be something that you end up doing. So then you have £1,000 or dollars coming into your pocket. And if, for example, you decide that you only need 1,000 to live on, like to pay your bills, well, then essentially you are financially independent. So that is also another popular investment vehicle. And then obviously other investment vehicles are things like, you know, having your own business, for example. So that potentially could be something you decide to do. If you decide to like create a business and you create a company, and you're able to sell like different products and things like that. And essentially, you could become financially independent if you don't physically have to be in the business. So there are different ways. I would say the most popular, particularly in the UK, is like investing through the stock market, so stocks and shares, and then also rental properties. Rent with like real estate is very popular, because obviously like people know, like you can see, you can touch, you can feel like houses and apartments and flats, like you can feel that. So more people are like much more comfortable with that. I would say that even though like investing through the stock market is one of the popular ways, I would say it's also, I think sometimes people find it difficult to invest through the stock market, because it may seem like quite overwhelming, because you may be questioning like, or what company should I invest in, or like what funds should I invest in. So I would say, although it's popular, not everyone will do it, but I will say that like once you're very clear on what you're working towards, like once you're very clear on your goals, it's a bit easier for you now to like start thinking about how to then start investing like through the stock market if that's something that you want to do. So for example, for me, like my part of my vehicle is investing through the stock market. So I have like a range of, I do invest in a small number of individual companies. It's not a lot, to be honest, because with individual companies you do have to do a lot of research, and I'm too lazy for that, honestly. Like I can't be bothered. So I don't invest in too many individual companies. But you can, like, majority of what I invest in are funds. So these are literally a group of companies that I will invest in. Like I invest through a global fund, for example, and that means they take basically all of the top companies globally in the world, and they literally have a fund for that, and I invest through that. So that's essentially like what I tend to do. That's like one of my vehicles. But yeah, that's essentially, that's like one of the most popular vehicles, I would say. Would you recommend saving with Plum and Moneybox? Again, I would say like this is probably up to you. I would say like one of the things you do want to look at are things like fees as well, because some of these like platforms do charge fees. So you just want to question and just say like, are you happy like paying the fees? I don't personally save through like Plum or Moneybox. I personally just, in terms of saving, I just use Monzo to be honest, and I do have like another like just general savings account, but that's like, yeah, again, it's like a personal preference, to be honest. Again, you want to think about like your own personal circumstances, your views, and look at the fees, like how much are they charging you to save or invest, for example. No, you didn't miss the live. There was a technical difficulty for the previous live, so I had to do another one. So you haven't missed it. So I will stay on a bit longer as well, especially if you guys have questions, because basically my husband ruined the first live. So anyway, do you use PayPal? I do. I kind of use PayPal and I don't. Like if I'm purchasing things, I may use PayPal if they let me use PayPal. But I'm not like, I don't like use it a lot. Essentially, it's not a big thing like in my finances. I actually keep my like, I know you guys probably think that I have this overcomplicated system like in terms of my finances. I really don't. I like to keep my finances simple. Like we, in terms of our account, like we're married, so we have, for us personally, we have like a joint account. Then I have like a personal account for myself, and that's like for my spending. And then I also have my investment account. And then we also have like a separate savings account for our emergency fund. But that's it. Like it's very simple. It's very clean. So as soon as I get paid, money will get transferred into my investment account, and then I just invest, and I invest in the same things as well. Like it's very, I feel like people over glamorize investing, where it seems like investing's supposed to be like this overcomplicated, like big thing, and it's like it's really sexy and it's like all of this stuff. You will learn that investing, the more boring investing is, the better. Because like when you start overcomplicating it, that's when problems start. And I made that mistake actually when I first started investing, because I started investing in all of these like individual companies, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like check their statements all the time, and I'm gonna be doing all this research. Guys, when life is busy, you can't be bothered to be doing all of this stuff. So that's one of the mistakes that I made. I realized that actually, based on my goals, I don't have the time to be doing that. So for me personally, I pick my funds and then I invest it. My clients do the same. They pick their funds and then there they go. Make your life interesting. Investing doesn't need to be interesting. Make your life interesting instead. Like my coach told me this one time. She was like, make your life interesting rather than trying to make like your finances or your business much more interesting. Like just focus on making your life interesting. And I apply that same principle to my investments. So even like now, because like I think a lot of people are like, maybe questioning like, oh, do you check your investment account every day? Like, do you look if it's gone up or down? Because like investments will go up or down. Like you're not guaranteed, it's not always guaranteed to go all the way up. But I really don't check it that often. Like I will mainly check it if I'm bored. Basically, if there's like one time where I'm like, oh, I just want to see how my portfolio is doing, I may check it then, or I'll probably check it if like I have got paid and I'm like moving money into my investment account and I'm deciding like, okay, what am I going to invest in this month? But that's it. Like honestly, it's just it sits there. It sits there, and personally, that's how I think it should be. I think the more you overcomplicate it, the more it gets. You tend to start getting more emotional. So then, when you now start to see, oh my gosh, like this share price went down, this went up, this went down, you then start to make decisions that may not actually be right for you. So for me, I keep it simple, I keep it boring, and I keep going and I start focusing on my life. So if there's anything you take from this life, make your investments boring, even saving, honestly, like now, like I love the aspect of saving, but it's just something that I like, it's just something that you automatically do. And it's literally like me paying my bills, basically. That's how I see saving. Like as soon as I get paid, I'm like, yeah, it's getting transferred to that, it's getting transferred to that account, and then I'm done. Then I move on with my life. I feel like sometimes we overcomplicate our finances when we don't need to, but it could potentially be because we feel like we're not doing enough, like, or we feel like something's wrong. Like if you're saving money, you feel like, oh no, this feels a bit too easy, like something's wrong. Like I had a client saying like, oh, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, because she had like different pots for like, I don't know, like her hair. She had a pot for her hair and she had a pot for like different things, like, you know, like could be Christmas, it could be birthday. And I was like, why is it wrong? And she was literally like, because, you know, people on YouTube, they be having all these like complicated things. And I said, that's them. Like, don't, some of the things we need to stop doing is comparing ourselves to other people. Like, please don't compare yourself to me as well. Like on YouTube, please don't compare yourself to me, because you have to think about like, well, what's really important to you? Because even if, for example, you're looking at my budget update and you're saying that, oh, this person, I'm putting like £50 or dollars into like my car pot, that's because of our car. You may have to put more, you may have to put less, but that's up to you. That's on your circumstance. So don't try and like compare everything. And that's even one of the reasons why I stopped doing my portfolio updates, because I just found that it wasn't very helpful, because I didn't want people to just now start copying what I'm doing, because we have completely different goals. There's no point in you trying to copy my whole portfolio, because I could be completely wrong. And if you then don't make money, you can't really come for me, because I don't want you to copy me. Like I don't want you to copy me. We both have different goals. So it's really important for you to figure out like, what do I need? What am I investing for? What am I saving for? And what's important to me? Whether it's saving, whether it's investing. Yes, they're quite different in terms of how long the time horizon may be, and the returns as well, because with investing you're obviously expecting a bit of higher return, but you're also putting in more risk, because you're not always guaranteed to make money. But even though they're a little bit different, the principles still remain the same. So I hope that's kind of flowing through this slide as well. Yeah, having separate accounts helped me so much. Yeah, so I have literally like, yeah, separate accounts. And even when I got started, before I got married, because obviously it's now a bit different since we joined our finances, but when I got started, I had my main bank account, which was used for all my bills. So I always made sure that my bills were paid. And then I had a separate account, which was my spending account. And that account was basically, I could just spend the money on anything and everything, doesn't really matter. But then I also had a separate savings account, because I was obviously saving at that time to pay off my debt. But I had it separate because I didn't want to see the account knowing that I could potentially just spend it all. Like if I saw the money chilling there, I'd probably spend it. So I had a separate savings account to make sure that like I would basically forget about it, and then I would be able to keep those savings there. Now, because I'm so good with like knowing exactly what I'm saving for, and like I'm comfortable having savings, now I can have savings in my account, no problem, and I won't spend it. But when I first started and I was trying to like work on my behavior around spending, I had to have a separate account. So you may find that actually having a separate account may be a bit easier for you. Do you invest within Monzo? Because I know they've got a lot of saving pot pockets, but I didn't know if you could invest with them. No, I don't invest through Monzo. So I use a platform called Trading 212. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you like what investment platform to use. Like, do your research. Like, you do want to use your research. If you have done your research and you find that Trading 212 is something that you want to use, I do have a link in my description if you ever want to check it out. But that's essentially what I use to invest through the stock market. But with Monzo, I use that for my spending, and I'll use that for some savings as well, if that makes sense. Um, have I cooked? Actually, let me answer this question first because this kind of links onto it. Opinions on high yield savings. Yeah, I mentioned this in the live that got cut off. But when it comes to high yield savings, I think like I'm not the person to tell you like what's the best bank account that gives the highest interest rate. For me, it's more, I always say that I'm more interested in what you're saving for rather than where you're actually putting the savings. Because at the end of the day, like, inflation is still high. So even if you do like save money, like it's still going to be eroded by inflation. So, but what I will say is that what I use, if I want to like look at high interest savings accounts, I use Money Saving Expert. If you're UK based, they have like a table of like different savings accounts, and whether like you can take the money out, if it's like easy access. So that's what you want to look at. So basically, some savings accounts will give you a higher interest. So they may give you like, I don't know, like up to 4% interest, but it could be that you can only take the money out once a year. Or maybe you can't even take the money out throughout the whole term. Or maybe you can only take it out a couple of times a year. So if you feel like, oh, I need something a bit more flexible, that may not make sense. Whereas another easy access savings account may be better for you, because even though it has like a lower interest rate, so for example, let's say that it's, I don't know, like 3%, if it's got a 3% interest, but you can withdraw it any time, well, then that may be a better option for you. So you just have to ask yourself, like, how often are you going to need this money? Are you likely to need it quite often? If not, like, having the high yield savings account that doesn't allow you to withdraw probably doesn't make sense. So you just have to ask yourself, like, what are these savings going to be for? It all stems back to that. What am I actually going to be using the savings? Let's say, for example, you were planning to buy a house. You're planning to buy a house like in the next 2 to 3 years. Well, then it may make sense to have a high interest savings account with less withdrawals if you know that you're not going to need it for the next 2 to 3 years. So it all depends on, again, what are you saving for? What are your goals? Oh, wow, I didn't even know that. I think I need the strict one because I don't trust yourself. Yeah, so one of the accounts that when I first started saving money, I didn't bother getting an account where I could just take it out really quickly, because I knew that if I could do that, I'd probably just take the money out and spend it. What I did is I got an account where it at least had to be 24 hours before I got the money. And the account that I had didn't even have an app. Like that's how like I was trying to learn like the behaviors of saving. Like it didn't even have an app. So I would literally have to log into the browser, and then I would have to wait 24 hours to now get the money back. So if I felt like I was gonna impulse buy on something, I was less likely to go into that account because it was just a lot of effort. So I didn't do that. And that helped me because now I've been able to build it to the point where I can literally just have money sitting in my account. Although it doesn't just sit in my account, again, there's specific areas, but I could have it in the same account essentially. Have I cooked anything new? Yes. And I have a video coming out. It's a surprise. I'll just say that I have a slight grocery haul video coming out. Probably won't be this week, probably next week, but I have that coming out. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you haven't already. But yeah, those are essentially, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. In terms of like investing as well, I do have videos talking through investing. If this is something that you want to go on have a bit more support on one-on-one, I do offer one-on-one coaching for that as well. So just book a call through the link in my bio, not link in my bio, this is not Instagram, link in the description if you want to find out more about one-on-one coaching, whether that's to do with saving more money or starting to invest specifically in the stock market. But it doesn't have to be, I think it doesn't have to be as complicated, but I think one of the best things you want to do is really be clear on what you're investing for, because that will then help you figure out, okay, if I have a specific goal, like if I have a goal of retirement or I have a goal of financial independence, because of this will help you decide, okay, these are the kind of things that I want to invest in. Maybe I want to invest through the stock market, maybe I want to invest through property, maybe I want to start my own business, but you'll know that from the goal that you have. And then it's going to be easier to say, okay, if I want to invest through the stock market, these are the type of things that I want to invest in. So it definitely does help. I remember I asked about London, I think 2 to 3 months ago. That dollar to pound exchange was crazy. Oh, yes. And I remember when I went, I remember we went to New York a couple of months ago, and this was just after the mini budget and the whole fiasco. And when the pound just absolutely dropped, it just made that holiday much more expensive, but we had the savings for it, so it was all right. But yeah, it was really expensive. But yeah, any questions, please do let me know. Any questions that you might have. What are you guys struggling with? Are there any specific questions that you want me to answer whilst I'm here? Do let me know. But yeah, in terms of, like, I do tend to get questions sometimes. They're like, what investment platform should I invest in? But I will always say, like, again, it depends on your goals. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, how you're trying to achieve it. And that will help you then figure out what platform you want to use. Because each platform is very different. And it's all going to depend on different circumstances. Like, I invest through completely different platforms to my clients because of, like, our different goals. So, even though I'm investing through this platform, it doesn't mean that you should invest through that as well. It may not be right for you, especially with, what you're trying to achieve. Investing for retirement is different from investing for maybe like a safety net later in life. Yeah, so it depends what you mean by safety net. So if, for example, you're thinking about like an emergency fund for later in life, I would just be thinking, okay, if I have my emergency fund now, will I just end up basically building that later on? Like, will it just be like, rather than having a 3-month emergency fund, am I going to have like a 6-month or 9-month emergency fund by the time, I don't know, I retire, or once I reach financial independence? That there's that option. Whereas you could be saying that when it comes to retirement, it is for basically when you then quit your job and you need investments paying for your bills, essentially. So they could be two different things. But what you could do is you could invest for both. If for example, you're saying that actually I probably will want like a bigger emergency fund, but it won't be until I retire, well, you could essentially invest for that as well, because you could say that I'm going to invest for both, and then you just have enough money, put that aside for your emergency fund when you retire, and then you also have your investments to live the rest of your life as well. So yeah, there's that. But again, good question though, because then that means you're kind of like thinking, if I'm going to invest, this is what I'll be investing for. I may be investing for also a safety net and then also my retirement. Has my groceries changed? In what way? I don't really think so. I think obviously it's just been a bit more, the cost has been a bit more, but we pretty much buy the same things. I would say on average we're probably spending around 44 to 45 pounds a week on groceries. Sometimes like it will go up to 50 and I'm like, what on earth did we buy where it's like gone up? But then it could be like, for example, the meat or fish that we're buying. So like if we buy salmon during that week, the food shop tends to be a bit more expensive compared to if we're only buying chicken for the week. So it kind of depends. But in terms of like the food, like we did try HelloFresh, and I did do a video on that, like in my grocery haul. We did try HelloFresh just to see how that was like, because I ended up getting a free link. I'll let you know. I'll wait till the video to let you know my thoughts. I'm not going to share it on here, but that is something that we tried for like 3 days as well. So that's really I'd say like the only change, but everything else, yeah, pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Any other questions? You can ask me anything about my life as well. Like, you guys know I only do this once a month, so feel free to ask me anything. Like, yeah, if you're nosy about my life or our finances as well, feel free to ask me. I'm usually an open book. Yes, I will let you know our thoughts on HelloFresh. I will give a quick spoiler. The food was actually quite nice. That will be the spoiler that I give. But yeah, no, it was a good experience, interesting experience. So, but I do talk about like my opinion in the video as well, just so that you know. Yeah, I noticed price rises as well, and like, like when you go to the shops and you're like, my shopping, like our food shop has not changed, but like when they give you the receipt, you're like, oh, okay, that's a bit different. That's a bit different. But yeah, I've noticed that for the past few weeks, so that is interesting. Are you saving for children in the future? That is an interesting question. So I will say, um, yes and no. So not physically saving right now, but like I have like I'm a very forward thinker. So like when I'm the type of person where I will start calculating childcare costs, even though like I'm nowhere near like at the stage where I'm ready to have a family. Like, but I will calculate it. So we have been thinking about like, okay, well, how much is childcare gonna cost? Or like how much is it gonna cost overall when you are thinking about, I don't know, like for example, having a child, like how much is that going to cost in terms of like the cot and all the equipment and stuff that you need, and then also thinking about maternity pay as well, like how much is that going to cost? So yeah, that is something that I have been like really thinking about recently. But yeah, we'll see. Like I think yeah, it kind of all depends. It's all like, I don't know, whatever God wants me to do, that's what I'll do. So yeah, yeah, it is a little bit hard thinking about it in this environment sometimes, but yeah, it's just something that we definitely like have, well, I have definitely thought about the savings plan as well. My husband not so much, because he's a bit of a free will kind of person. He's more of a in the now. He's in the now type of person. Yeah, I'm the person that's like, oh, we need to think about this. So yeah. Can saving and investing work for someone under the poverty line living in New York? I think most of my expenses are transport and food, and sometimes the emergency expenses like books, etc. um yeah, like it's honestly, it's very difficult if someone's under the poverty line. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I had, like, there are stories of people who have not had like a huge income at all. I remember there was a guy, like, I don't remember what his job was, but it was basically a low income job. But what he did was he did manage to save and start investing like a proportion of his income, and then he basically had like a millionaire portfolio by the time he retired. Or it wasn't a million, I think, but it was like a good chunk of money for his retirement. But I think if you're in a high cost living area, like if you're in a high cost living area but your income can't even match that, your main focus has to be on the income element, because you're not going to be able, like, even if you do like a budget and you literally just live on the bare essentials, you're not going to have enough money to do like anything else. So your main income in that aspect is going to have to be on increasing your income, or obviously moving to another area where you can afford it, where you have like space to be able to save and invest, like you have a buffer. But yeah, but like if you're in that situation, I would definitely be thinking more about the income. Especially if you're already like if you already have like a bare bones budget and like that's literally what you're living on, it's going to be an income. It's going to be the income that you need to focus on. And that's why I always say, like, you have to realize, like, you have to think, do I have an income problem or do I have a spending problem? Because actually, for a lot of us, we have a spending problem. We just don't want to admit it. But for some people, they will have an income problem where really and truly, like, it's going to be very difficult to save unless you increase your income. So if you're in that camp, definitely focus on that. If you're on the other camp where you have a decent income, you would like to make more money, but you have a decent income and potentially you could save but nothing's happening, that's a spending problem. That's totally different. The income is not going to help, unfortunately. That's a spending problem. You need to fix that rather than, but once you fix that, then of course you can still continue to increase your income as well. You'll have to open a children's pot. Yes, although I don't know if I would share that publicly in my budget though. So there's some things you make it. There's some things you kind of keep private. But yeah, if I did though, like if we were like properly planning and stuff, then yeah, 100%. I would have a sinking fund for that. 100%. I'd have a pot set aside. Worst financial mistake in the last year? That's a good question. It's been the last year, 2022. Do you know what? I don't know if like there's been a worse financial mistake. Because 2022 was already a little bit of a tough year for like economically. I don't think there was anything drastic that happened. I'm even trying to remember what happened in 2022. I would say actually I would say that like when I well no I'd say that actually one of the mistakes that I did do is when I left my job. I think that I should have created a pot that was actually there for also like spending as well, like throughout the months that I wasn't working. Because what happened was, even though like we had money and like we had like a year's worth of savings and stuff, but even though we had that, I felt like we didn't want to spend that money on just, other random things. So I think like if I was to do it again, because last year there was a period of time where I wasn't working, if I was to do it again, what I would have done is I actually would have saved up separately a pot for me saying, okay, like if I'm taking off 6 months, I have 6 months of money just to like live on, to do like anything. Because I felt like when I actually quit my job, I felt really guilty about like spending other money, because like at that time we were then living on my husband's income, and then even with my business I was literally just using all my business money to invest. Like that's all my business money was going to. So because of that, I was like, oh, I feel like I can't really spend money on anything else, because like we were just like living on that one income. Like our income is joined, but I just felt like I just felt a bit guilty. So I think if I was to do it again, I would definitely have created like another pot, so that like even if I quit, like we'd still have a pot where like I can just still have fun with, and I can do anything and everything with. So I think that's probably the mistake I made last year. Yeah, I think the mistakes get don't get as they're not as bad like the more you know about finances. Because if you asked me this 4 years ago, then my worst mistake was definitely having a max out overdraft for paying for holidays. So yeah, that would have been yeah, I would say my worst mistake, I would say. um I really want to do an opera program that is like 1750. Maybe I should ask for help, or how do you think I should go about saving for it? Yeah, I mean, honestly, it depends. Like if you find that you may be able to have like spare cash, that is something that you can save for. Let's say that you're able to save like, I don't know, $100 a month. But if you feel like actually with the amount of money you have, like that all goes to like your necessary expenses, you may have to start being a bit creative. It may be that you start a side hustle, for example. It may be that you even like, I don't know, drive for Uber, dog sitting, babysitting, just anything that you can do like on the side to be able to just get some quick cash and then pay for it. That is something that potentially you may have to do. Or if, for example, you're working, could you find another job that actually pays better? For example, obviously depending on what you're doing. So I don't know if you're working or um, in college. Yeah, because she said books. So I don't know if you're in college, for example. But yeah, it could be. Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, you've said that you're in school full time and unemployed. Yeah, so it could be like whilst you're in school, could you like try and find like a part time job? Like I know, like even for example, I don't know, like in the hospitality sector, they're still looking for workers. So could you like go and do like waitressing or something? Um, there is that. Yeah, there's that option. Um, yeah, further the program be. Yeah, dog sitting could be potentially something you do. Like I think sometimes like we forget that there are things that we can do to like if we do really need to make money quickly, like on the side, there are things that you can do. You don't have to start a full on business because businesses can take time to do, but if you know you need money very quickly, you could become an Uber driver or delivery driver. What do they have in the US? Lyft driver or like any like food delivery driver. Um, yeah, or something like that. Or like in the UK with Deliveroo, some people even used bikes. They didn't even have cars, so they would literally deliver food with their bikes. So that is potentially what you could do. So don't be afraid to be creative. Like if you need to be creative, don't be afraid. Try and find a side hustle or anything like that. Any other questions before I go? But yeah, this has been an interesting live, especially after the technical difficulties. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me still. Um, but yeah, there should be hopefully a budget update video coming out on Tuesday. I'm planning for it to come on Tuesday. I do still need to edit it. And then yeah, if there are any other like video content ideas that you want me to do, feel free to let me know. Again, if you do want like that one-on-one support when it comes to either saving more money or starting to invest, definitely book a call. It's in the description. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it now. Oh, thank you. Thank you that you love my lives. No, I do have fun when I do this. So the next live will probably be end of March. So look forward to that. And I think I probably will do how to stick to your budget because that was like literally, it was almost 50-50 when you guys voted for it. So yes, no problem. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening and we will speak soon. See you later. Bye.